In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, the Apostle Paul says to his young disciple Timothy, he says, "And what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also." Now, what the Apostle Paul is doing in this moment is he's helping his young protege, his disciple Timothy, see that the discipleship that's taken place in and among them isn't to just stay there, but it's actually meant to be passed on to the next generation and to the next generation and to the next generation and to keep on going. And that's why we believe in not just making disciples, but multiplying disciples. We want to be a movement of disciple makers because we believe that's how the gospel gets to the world. And in order to do that well, we need to make sure that we're supplying the coaching that's needed so that that movement can actually not just take off, but spread like wildfire. Now, when you hear the word coaching, there may be multiple different things that come to your mind, but for me, when I think about coaching, I think of 9th grade basketball and Coach Bill. I'll never forget one day we were playing one of our rivals and we're in at halftime and we're losing, and Coach Bill comes into the locker room furious and he begins punching the lockers right above our heads and putting dents in the locker room, and he's screaming at us and he's saying, "Why do you play basketball?" And we're all scared out of our minds. In the middle of him screaming at us, his piece of gum that he was chewing comes flying out of his mouth. He catches it in one hand and he goes right back to screaming at us, asking us why we play basketball. Now, sometimes when I think about coaching, that's what I think of. That's like my perspective of bringing it in. And I don't know what you have, but I'm sure you have one too. You've had coaches in your life, and so sometimes we have a skewed view of what discipleship coaching can actually look like. And so what I want to be able to do for us today is just give us a foundation of what healthy discipleship, multiplying discipleship movement kind of coaching looks like. And so there's 4 things that I want us to look at today so that we can have the right framework. The first one is that we would connect relationally. This is the backbone of being able to see a disciple-making movement happen, is that we are continuing to connect relationally with our disciples beyond the time that maybe we've gone to disciple them, that we're continuing to connect. And maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once a quarter. It just depends on what fits into your schedule. But the importance there is that there's a relational connection and that you're checking in on them to see how their discipleship is going, so that then they will model that relational connection down on through that downline to make sure that we actually are multiplying to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation. Connecting relational is essential. Number 2 is that we would be available to consult when needed. You know this because you've been making disciples, and that making disciples is messy. It's not a straight line of progress, but it's a zigzag line. It's up and down a mountain. You're in valleys and you're on mountaintops. And sometimes we run into issues and we just need help. That's part of the process. And so as a coach, it means that you're available to meet, to consult, to talk through issues, to problem solve, to pray, to be there for your disciples who are now disciple makers, but that you're there ready to consult. And so number 1, we have connect relationally. Number 2, that we consult when needed. Number 3 is that we're ready to cheerlead regularly. You know this because when you are in the trenches of making disciples, you know that sometimes you just need someone else to come alongside you and to say, let's keep on keeping on. We know it's hard. We know it's tiring. But there's no greater thing that we can give our lives to than making disciples, because this is Jesus's call on our lives, and we are a part of something that is so important. We are a part of something that's so much bigger than ourselves, and regularly we need to come alongside our disciple makers and coach them and cheerlead them on. Now, the 4th thing that we need to be able to do is continue to help them with the mission, that we would champion the mission. And what's that mission? Well, it's making and multiplying disciples, that we're continuing to put that out in front of them, saying not only you can do this, but let's continue to do this. Let's continue to find more people that we can disciple so that multiplication can happen, so that it can spread like wildfire. So now when we think about what a coach does and how a coach is effective, a coach is someone who connects relationally. A coach is someone who is consulting when needed. A coach is someone who cheerleads regularly. And a coach is someone who champions that mission over and over and over again. And when we do these 4 things regularly with our disciples who are disciple makers, you know what we're going to see? We're going to continue to see generation after generation after generation of disciples made and multiplied for the glory of God. And I don't know about you, but that's something that I feel honored to get to be a part of.